The sun burned low over the Nevada desert, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain of the elite sniper training base. A convoy rolled in, dusty and tired from the long drive. Among the new arrivals, one figure stood out not because of her stature or uniform, but because of the reactions she drew. Ava Torres stepped out of the van carrying her duffel bag over one shoulder. Tall, athletic, and quiet, she looked around with observant eyes, taking in the distant targets, the gun-metal glint of the range towers, the row of trainees already watching her with amusement. Most were men older, grizzled, cocky, and all of them had the same reaction: disbelief. She was the only woman in this cycle of the elite U.S. Army sniper program. "Another civilian playing soldier," one of the men muttered. "Look at her. She's wearing lip balm." Another laughed. "Gonna cry when she sees her first rattlesnake," added a third. SGT, Rock Ox Jensen, stood at the center of the group, arms crossed, his reputation preceding him. Decorated marksman. 4 deployments. 2 confirmed kills over 3,000 meters. He looked Ava over with a slow, condescending smirk. "Well," he drawled, "I guess HQ needed a poster girl." Ava didn't respond. She met his gaze for a second, then shifted her eyes back to the landscape. She wasn't here to trade insults. She was here for one thing: precision. She'd grown up in a trailer on the edge of Arizona, raised by her grandfather, a retired Marine who taught her everything about guns before she turned 12. While kids her age were playing video games, Ava was calculating wind drift and bullet drop in sandstorms. She'd spent years in amateur shooting competitions, often beating former military guys twice her age. But none of that mattered here. Here, she was a rookie civilian background, no combat experience, and worst of all, a woman among a tightly wound brotherhood of alpha snipers. The nickname started quickly. Barbie with a Barrett. They said it loud enough for her to hear. Hey. Instructors, strict but fair, gave no indication they favored her or the others. Everyone had the same shot literally and figuratively. But that didn't stop the internal squad culture from festering. The 6 other trainees quickly bonded over one thing excluding her. Meals, drills, downtime, she was either ignored or mocked, and Ox led it all like a middle school bully with a military record. But Ava didn't break. She didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't try to earn their respect. Instead, she kept to herself, quietly observing them just like she observed the terrain. Every twitch, every movement, every mistake. The training began with the basics: camouflaging, stalking, fieldcraft. The instructors barked commands while the Nevada sun scorched skin and dried throats. Ava executed every maneuver with silent precision, while others talked about their kills and combat stories. She calculated angles, mapped landmarks, and asked intelligent questions only when necessary. Then came range day. The trainees lined up one by one, tasked with hitting targets progressively farther away. Most managed to land clean shots up to 1,800 meters. Ox, unsurprisingly, nailed 2,400 without breaking a sweat. He turned to the others, flexing his jaw. "Let's see what Barbie's got." Ava stepped up, took her position, and adjusted the unfamiliar rifle she was assigned. She checked the wind, breathed evenly, and fired. One target down, then another, and another. 1,000 meters, 1,200 meters, 1,500 meters, 1,800 meters, 2,000 meters. Every shot hit dead center. No cheers. Just silence. Even Ox's smile faltered for a second. Then, like flipping a switch, he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Beginner's luck." The squad chuckled nervously, unsure if they were witnessing a fluke or something more. That night, Ava stayed in the range tent long after others turned in. She borrowed a manual on high-velocity sniper ballistics from the training library and sat under the harsh light of a flickering desk lamp, flipping pages until the early hours. Master SGT Harris, a quiet observer with decades under his belt, passed by and paused. "You know nobody else studies like that, right?" he said. "I'm not here to be like them," Ava replied. He nodded. "Good, because they're not going to make this easy." "I'm not here for easy either." He left her to her studies. Inside, Ava was already planning for something big. She'd overheard a conversation among the instructors about a final, voluntary challenge, the 5,000-meter shot. It had never been done by a trainee. Most called it impossible. Others said it was just a myth. But Ava had already started doing the math. The desert heat grew fiercer with each passing day, baking the skin and minds of everyone in the sniper course. Week 2 brought precision drills, moving targets, wind corrections, uphill and downhill firing. Confidence bloomed among the squad, especially Ox and his two closest lackeys, Reese and Delgado. They walked with puffed chests, exchanging loud jokes about Ava's lucky shots and calling each other real snipers. Ava, meanwhile, kept quiet. She hit targets, recorded her data, and made mental notes. Unlike the others, who relied on instinct and experience, she relied on math, planning, and exact repeatability. Every bullet told her a story. She listened. During lunch breaks, the guys would sit under the mess shelter tossing bits of bread to crows and mocking her silence. "Yo, Barbie," Reese yelled one afternoon. "You lost or just dreaming about eyeliner." Ava didn't even look up from her notebook. She was reviewing wind drift graphs, calculating angles. Her sandwich sat untouched. Delgado grinned. "She's trying to be all mysterious, like those quiet movie assassins. Bet she's planning to kill us with kindness." Everyone laughed, except Harris. The grizzled master sergeant stood nearby, arms folded, watching Ava from a distance. She had that laser focus, a kind he'd only seen in real shooters, the ones who disappeared into the zone when it counted. He admired that, but he also knew it made her a target. Later that day came the 2,500-meter drill. It wasn't mandatory, but offered as a bonus exercise for advanced performers. Ava was the first to sign up. Ox rolled his eyes. "She's going to embarrass herself," he muttered. "Maybe," Harris replied, passing by. "Or maybe you're just scared someone outshoots you without the ego." Ox glared at him, but said nothing. The drill involved a brutal setup high elevation, extreme crosswind, and a time limit. Each shooter had 2 chances. Delgado went first, missed both. Reese hit on the second attempt, but only clipped the edge. Ox nailed the bullseye on his first shot. The squad clapped like they'd won a championship. Then it was Ava's turn. She took her time setting up, painstakingly adjusting her bipod, her sling, her breathing. The others grew restless. "Just shoot already," someone muttered. She fired. Silence. Then, ding, dead center, first shot. Nobody cheered. She stood, dusted herself off, and returned to her tent. That night, something changed. The joking died down. The squad's laughter was tinged with tension now. Reese stopped. Calling her Barbie, Delgado began avoiding eye contact. Only Ox kept up the performance, louder and more obnoxious than before. "She's just lucky," he insisted, forcing a grin. "It's not real skill. She couldn't do that under pressure." He was starting to sound like he was convincing himself. Ava noticed. Later, alone in the equipment shed, she stripped her rifle, cleaned it piece by piece, then began adjusting the scope. Harris entered quietly, watching her. "You're making them nervous," he said. "I'm not here for them," she replied. "No," he nodded. You're here for the record. Ava looked up, surprised. You know about the 5,000-meter shot? I was on base the last time someone tried it. That was 12 years ago. He missed by 80 meters. People laughed. For a week, Guy never recovered. I'm not afraid of missing. Good, Harris said. Because the moment you say that out loud, it means you're ready. She went back to her scope. You're not like the others, Ava, Harris said after a pause. They shoot to impress. You shoot to understand. That's the difference. Between a trigger puller and a marksman. Which one are you? She asked. I used to be a trigger puller, he said. Then I met someone who made a shot that changed everything I believed. A woman, too. She looked up again. He smiled. Don't let them write your story, he said. Make them read it. The next day, the instructors announced a mock competition. 3 shots, one at 1,200 meters, one at 1,800, and one at 2,600 meters. The twist? Shooters had to guess their windage without spotters. It was brutal, meant to test instinct over training. Ox went first and scored 2 out of 3. Delgado missed all 3. Reese landed 1. Ava landed all 3, perfectly. Squad was silent as her score was posted. For the first time, Ox didn't make a joke. He clenched his jaw and walked off toward the motor pool. That evening, as she returned to her tent, Ava found her rifle case left slightly open. Inside, her scope was scratched, her wind meter gone. She didn't react. She just sat down and opened her notebook, flipping to the last page. At the top, she wrote, 5,000-meter shot. Elevation, 4.8%. Wind shear, variable. Air temp, 93 degrees Fahrenheit. She had started preparing days ago. The sabotage didn't matter. She wasn't planning to compete with them. She was planning to erase them. The sabotage had grown bolder. After the scratched scope, Ava found her range logbook soaked in water, pages warped, ink smudged. Someone had dumped her journal into a cleaning bucket. Her calculations, charts, and notes gone. A week of meticulous data destroyed. She stood there, dripping book in hand, her face expressionless. Inside, though, a storm brewed. The squad was escalating, and no one was stopping them. Maybe no one even knew. Or maybe everyone knew, and no one cared. Either way, Ava refused to give them what they wanted, a reaction. Instead, she rewrote the pages from memory, every line, every number. By evening, she had the entire range redrawn. She didn't miss a single variable. Harris found her under the floodlight near the motor pool, hunched over a fresh notebook. They hit you again? He asked. Ava didn't look up. Yes. You going to report it? No, he exhaled. Why not? Because reporting it tells them they got to me. Harris stepped closer, placing a hand on the table. They don't hate you, you know. They fear you. She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's their problem. Harris watched her scribble a correction for a wind drift equation. Her movements precise. You're building something, aren't you? He asked. She nodded once. The shot. The 5,000? Ava looked up for the first time. Her voice was steady. I'm going to take it soon. He said nothing for a moment. Then, quietly, then you'd better be ready for all eyes. You hit it? You become legend. You miss, they'll tear you apart. I'm used to that part. The next morning, everything changed. After breakfast, a notice went up on the bulletin board. Special Evaluation Challenge. 5,000-meter trial. Voluntary. Open range. In small print, 1 participant registered. By noon, the entire base was buzzing. Most people didn't believe it. Who's crazy enough to try that shot? They asked. Nobody's hit that since the record attempt. And even that failed. When they heard it was Ava Torres, the reaction split. Half laughed. "She's gone too far." The other half whispered, "She might actually do it." Inside the barracks, Ox sat silently while Reese paced. "She's just asking to fail." Reese muttered, "That shot's impossible." Delgado grunted, "You think she's bluffing?" Ox didn't answer. He stared out the window toward the ridge in the distance. "She's not bluffing," he finally said. "She's been planning this." Reese scoffed. "You think she's better than you?" Ox slowly turned. "I think she's more obsessed than all of us. And maybe smarter." Reese's face twisted. "So what? We just let her win?" "She's not fighting us," Ox said. "She's chasing something we don't even understand." That silenced them. Meanwhile, Ava prepared in silence. She cleaned her rifle again. Double-checked every component. She mounted Harris's old scope, vintage but precise. She adjusted the parallax, checked the zero, tested the eye relief. Every variable mattered now. She walked to the command tent to confirm her trial. The range master looked her over like she was signing her own execution. 5,000 meters? "You sure?" "Yes. You miss it, people will remember." "Good." He nodded slowly and stamped the form. That evening, as the desert cooled, Ava stood alone at the edge of the ridge. Harris joined her, carrying his old spotting scope and a folded chair. "You're really going through with it?" he asked. She didn't answer. She just opened her notebook and began reviewing the numbers again. He set the chair down and adjusted the scope. "Then I'll be your spotter." She looked at him, surprised. "I thought it had to be unofficial," she said. He nodded. "It is. But you deserve eyes you can trust." She gave him a grateful nod. The night before the shot, the squad threw a party behind the mess hall. Loud music, beer, laughter. Ava stayed in her bunk, writing quietly. She wasn't nervous. She was steady, focused, ready. Reese knocked once on her wall and muttered, "Good luck, Barbie." She didn't reply, but she did smile for the first time in days. Dawn broke over the range, bathing the sand in a golden glow. Vehicles lined the ridge, loaded with instructors, staff, and curious soldiers. Word had spread. A crowd had gathered. Ox stood near the back, arms crossed, silent. Harris adjusted the spotting scope. Eva lay flat in the dirt, breathing slow and deep, her rifle extended in front of her like a weapon from another world. She ran her checklist, whispering every step. Wind, light crosswind at 3 miles per hour. Temp, 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 19%. Bullet drop, 60 feet over distance. Coriolis drift, 0.8 inches east. Elevation set, she whispered. Harris nodded. You're clear. Ava exhaled. Her finger tightened. And then she squeezed. Time froze. The shot cracked through the morning silence, a sharp report echoing off the rocky ridge. Ava didn't move. Her cheek stayed pressed to the stock. Her eyes stayed locked downrange. Her breathing, slow and rhythmic, never changed. She knew the bullet's journey had only just begun. It would take nearly 4 full seconds for the round to reach the target, an eternity for snipers. Even a sneeze of wind could shift everything. The Earth's curvature mattered now. Even the barrel's microheating from the prior shot had been factored in. Harris gripped his scope tighter. 1 second. 2, 3, ping. A faint metallic ring echoed back from the distant steel plate. Then came silence. Not a cheer. Not a whisper. Just stunned silence. Ava finally lifted her head. Harris straightened up, blinking in disbelief. That was a hit. The range master's eyes were wide. He looked at his assistant. Confirm. The assistant was still frozen. It rang. That was it. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Others shouted in shock. A few dropped their gear. On the far edge of the group, Ox stared at the target area through his own rangefinder. The steel plate was swinging. Ava Torres had just hit the 5,000-meter mark. Clean. First try. It took a few moments for the noise to reach her. She stood, brushing sand from her uniform, and offered the rifle to the instructor. He took it like it was holy. "That's not just a hit," the range master muttered. "That's history." By noon, every corner of the base had heard the news. Photos of the steel plate were circulating in message groups. Instructors from other bases were texting confirmation requests. One even called to ask if it was faked. The command post issued a formal statement. Trainee Ava Torres successfully completed a verified 5,000-meter target shot under field conditions. First in program history. Someone posted it on the base's announcement board, printing it. In bold font, the heading read, "Rookie no more." Meanwhile, the squad that had once mocked her sat quietly in the barracks. Delgado had nothing to say. Reese kept checking his phone, as if the news would change. Ox sat on his bunk, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was disbelief. She hadn't just beaten them. She'd done something none of them had dared even try. Reese broke the silence. "She planned that. From the start, didn't she?" Ox nodded. "Every damn day." "You think she's getting deployed?" "Oh, she's going somewhere," Ox said, "and not with us." A knock on the door interrupted them. It was Master SGT Harris. He looked around, eyes resting on Ox. "Command wants you all present for the debrief and the apology." Ox looked up. "Apology?" "To Torres," Harris said. "Public. Optional, but advised." Delgado looked like he'd just swallowed glass. At the debrief, the auditorium buzzed. Instructors, admin staff, trainees, all eyes were on Ava. She stood at the front of the room in full uniform. No smugness, no smile, just calm precision as always. The CO stepped up to the podium. "Today, history was made on our range. Not by a seasoned veteran, not by a war-hardened sniper, but by a woman many here underestimated from day one." A long pause. "We will now open the floor for any acknowledgments from her unit." Ox stood, the room tensed. He walked to the front, turned to face the crowd, and then turned toward Ava. His voice was low but clear. "Torres, I misjudged you. We all did. I mocked you, doubted you, disrespected you." He paused. "You didn't just prove us wrong. You reminded us what this program is supposed to be about." He extended his hand. Ava hesitated, then shook it. One firm shake. No words needed. A room applauded. Outside, a group of new recruits gathered by the practice range, pointing at the distant target. "You can barely even see it," one whispered. Another replied, "She hit that thing from here?" One of the instructors overheard. "With no spotter. First round," while half the base doubted her. The recruit shook his head. "Man, I want to be that good." The instructor smiled. "Then you'd better stop laughing and start learning." Later that night, Harris and Ava stood beside the target, now marked with her initials. The steel bore a perfectly centered dent, the paint scorched from the impact. He lit a cigar, took a puff, and said, "You know what comes next?" Ava looked up at the stars. "Deployment?" He nodded. "You've got offers coming in from 3 units already, including a covert recon sniper team overseas. High risk, high value targets. You ready?" "I was born ready," she said softly. Back at her bunk, Ava opened a fresh notebook. The first page was blank. She wrote only one sentence. "The bullet doesn't care about your story, only your shot." Then she closed the book, turned off the light, and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. 3 weeks after Ava Torres' legendary shot, she stepped off a transport aircraft in northern Iraq under the cover of night. The air smelled of oil, dust, and gunpowder. The terrain was unfamiliar, but Ava was calm. This wasn't training. Anymore, this was real. She'd been assigned to Ghost Team Echo, a unit so classified it didn't exist on paper. Their mission: neutralize high-value threats with surgical precision. No margin for error. No backup. No recognition. Her inclusion had surprised even them. When the commander, a sharp-eyed woman named L.T. Aria Keene, reviewed Ava's file, she said only one thing: if she's half as good as that 5,000-meter shot, she's worth 10 of the others. The first mission came fast. Intel showed that a notorious bomb maker, known as the Architect, had resurfaced deep in hostile territory. Too dangerous to extract, too important to ignore. Orders were clear: 1 shot, 1 kill. The targets: compound sat on a bluff beyond a canyon, with roaming patrols and snipers guarding the perimeter. The approach was suicide, but Echo didn't plan to get close. They planned to use distance. Only Ava could make the shot. They set up a hide in the ruins of an abandoned radio station on a nearby ridge, 4,720 meters from the target, the longest. Operational shot recorded in combat was just over 3,500 meters. Ava was about to attempt something no soldier had dared. She lay prone for 5 hours, calibrating. Every variable mattered: temperature, humidity, Coriolis effect, even the faint updrafts caused by the canyon walls. Keene whispered, "Target will be visible in 3 minutes. You sure about this?" Ava didn't respond. She adjusted her dial. Half a click, the wind shifted. She exhaled and waited. Through the high-powered scope, the Architect finally appeared, flanked by 2 guards speaking into a phone. Ava tracked him. Not breathing, not blinking. Windows tight, Keene. Side, "You've got 1 second, maybe less." Ava squeezed. The rifle bucked gently. The bullet left the barrel at nearly 3,000 feet per second. 5 seconds later, the Architect dropped instantly. No sound. No scream. Just crumpled silence. One guard reached down, confused. Then he panicked. But Ava was already packing her. Rifle. Keene's voice came over comms. Target neutralized. Clean exit. Back at the forward base, Ghost Team Echo didn't speak much. That was their style. But the respect was clear. Even the most hardened men on the team gave Ava a nod she hadn't received before. Keene approached with a grin. 2 impossible shots in 2 months. You planning to keep doing this? Only if it's necessary, Ava replied. Good. Keene said, because Command just cleared your new call sign. Ava raised an eyebrow. Keene handed her a patch. Whisper. The name spread like wildfire. In hushed conversations across units, whispers followed. Did you hear? Whisper took out a target from over 4 clicks out. She doesn't miss, ever. They say her rifle sings before it kills. Back in the States, trainees in sniper school now studied her ballistic setup like sacred scripture. Her name appeared in unofficial training guides, spoken with a mix of awe and disbelief. The same instructors who once rolled their eyes at female recruits now used her story as a benchmark. But the praise came with pressure. Each mission demanded more. Every shot pushed her further. Whisper became known for doing what others thought impossible. And sometimes that weighed heavy. During downtime between ops, she often sat alone, rebuilding her rifle piece by piece, as if recentering herself. Keene noticed. You okay? She asked once. Ava didn't look up. It's not the shots. It's the silence afterward. Keene nodded. Killing quietly doesn't make it easier. Just makes it quieter. Weeks later, A new op came in. High stakes. A meeting of 5 insurgent leaders was scheduled in a remote mountain valley near the Syrian border. One opportunity. No second chances. Ava's orders were unorthodox. 5 simultaneous kills using synchronized shots with 2 other snipers. The plan was madness. Too risky, one sniper said. Too far. We need drones. Keen shook her head. They'll hear the drone. It won't hear whisper. The snipers adjusted. They followed her lead. Relied on her math, her calculations, her intuition. At 0500 hours, all 5 targets were down before the first guard noticed. Clean, synchronized, surgical. It was called the silent culling. The mission report listed one key line: shot calls made by whisper. 1 month. Later, back at HQ, a colonel requested to meet her. I've served 29 years, he said, and I've never seen a trajectory like yours. Ava stood silently. You've done more in 6 months than most snipers do in a career. I'm not asking you to stop. I'm asking if you want more. She finally spoke. What's more? He leaned forward. Training the next generation. Building something permanent. Passing the torch. Ava didn't answer. Not yet. She had one last mission first. 2 weeks later, Ava received a sealed envelope at the Ghost Team Echo compound. No sender, no digital trail. Inside was a single photo. A man from her past, face bruised, chained to a post. A note beneath read, "Come alone, or he dies." The man in the picture was Noah Vance, a CIA analyst who once trained with Ava during her rookie rotation. They'd grown close, too close. When his unit was compromised in Syria 6 months ago, he was presumed dead. But now this? Ava clenched. The photo in her fist. This wasn't just bait. This was personal. She brought it to Keen immediately. Someone wants you off the board, Keen said flatly. They know how to get to you. Permission to extract him, Ava said, tone cold, controlled. Keen stared. It's a trap. I know, Ava replied. But it's mine. After a moment, Keen sighed. You go, you take Ghost Echo with you. Ava shook her head. This one, I do alone. Keen's silence was her only approval. The location was buried deep in the Black Ridge Desert, a forgotten Soviet outpost repurposed by rogue paramilitaries. Ava landed by Halo, jump at 0300 hours, and moved like a shadow over the sand. Every step forward raised the question in her head. What if it's not real? Still, she pressed on. Her rifle was broken down into lightweight components. She carried no backup, no drone, no comms, just her skill, and a debt. From a distant ridge, she set up her scope and scanned the area. Nothing about the layout was natural. The post had been constructed for her. Guard towers with open views, decoys moving like real men, thermal signatures dancing unnaturally. It screamed ambush. But at the center, she spotted him. Noah, tied to a metal chair, weak, bloody, but alive. A guard slapped him. Her jaw tightened. She adjusted her reticle, then paused. They wanted her to shoot, to give away her position. Why? A voice crackled over an old loudspeaker, echoing across the sand. Whisper. Welcome to your legends. Funeral. Then all hell broke loose. Mortar hit behind her ridge. Sniper rounds cracked just inches from her cover. They knew her location. She rolled, slid down the cliff, and vanished into the sandstorm rising behind her. A godsend. They had tech, numbers, surveillance. But she had rage, and training, and time. Inside the outpost, mercenaries scrambled. She's gone, one growled. We had her. The leader, a scarred Russian named Sokolov, smiled. No, she's hunting now. Just like we planned. But what he didn't know, Ava had already entered the base perimeter. Under cover of sand and darkness, she crept through abandoned tunnels from the Soviet era, navigating by memory and instinct. She wasn't the hunted. She was the storm. She surfaced near a storage building and took out 2 guards silently. Then came a voice behind her. "You're late." She spun, rifle raised, but paused. It was Noah, unshackled, gun in hand. Not a hostage, a collaborator. "Why?" she asked, voice hollow. He smirked. "Because you're worth more dead than alive. Your legend makes people dangerous. I helped create you. Now I end you." Before he could raise his weapon, she dropped to one knee, pulled her sidearm, and fired. He collapsed with a surprised breath. One shot, no hesitation. Her hands shook for only a moment. Then she moved. The real enemy was still alive. Sokolov, ex-GRU sniper, turned mercenary leader. He had one goal: dismantle the American myth of Whisper by luring her to fail. He underestimated her. She climbed a rusted tower, found her angle. Through cracked glass and shadow, she saw him commanding. The chaos, barking orders. Ava steadied her breath, adjusted for wind, ignored the burning in her heart. This wasn't revenge. This was precision. She squeezed. The bullet split through the window and his temple. Sokolov dropped instantly. Everything went still. A beat of silence. Then confusion rippled through the enemy ranks. No leader, no command. Just chaos. Ava descended like a wraith through smoke and steel, dodging what fire remained. She exited the compound with no sound but the wind. Minutes later, she detonated the charges she'd planted in the fuel tanks. The entire outpost went up in flames. A warning to whoever else might think they could manipulate Whisper. At dawn, a black chopper picked her up. Keen stood inside, arms crossed, unreadable expression. "Did you get him?" she asked. "Yes," Ava said. "And the analyst?" A pause. "Wasn't who we thought he was." Keen nodded. "Good. Then he won't be missed." Back at Ghost Echo's base, Ava placed Noah's photo back into the envelope and burned it. She stared at the ashes for a long time. Whispers had surrounded her name, but now they whispered something else. That she'd survived the trap at Black Ridge alone. That she'd walked into death and came back with fire in her eyes. That Whisper wasn't just a sniper. She was a myth made flesh. Back on base, the sun had barely risen, but Ava was already awake, her mind racing. The Black Ridge operation had left scars deeper than any bullet wound trust shattered, old bonds broken. The mission was a success, but her personal cost was heavy. Keen approached quietly, her face grave. "Command wants you back stateside. Immediate debrief and reassignment." Ava's eyes narrowed. "They want me to stop?" "No," Keen said softly. "They want you to lead, train, build the future." Ava stared out the window, the desert stretching endlessly. "I came here to fight, not to teach." Keen nodded, understanding. "You're more than a shooter now. You're a symbol." Symbols weren't made overnight. Ava knew that. The Whispers had followed her every step, but now they wanted her story to inspire, to mold others into sharpshooters like her. Her return was met with quiet respect. The same squad that had doubted her was now a ghost of itself. Some had transferred out. Others kept their distance, unsure how to approach the woman who had shattered their illusions. In the training yard, Ava found herself surrounded by eager young recruits. Wide-eyed, some male, some female, all hungry to learn. One approached nervously. "Are you really the one who hit that shot? The 5,000 meter?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, but hitting a target is more than just pulling the trigger." She taught them how to read the wind like a whispered secret, how to steady breathing until it became part of their heartbeat, how to listen to the rifle and understand its voice. Her sessions were rigorous, her expectations high. One recruit, a cocky young man named Jensen, challenged her methods. "You think theory matters? Out there, it's instinct and guts." Ava fixed him with a steady gaze. "Out there, guts. Without skill is wasted." Jensen didn't argue after that. Days turned into weeks, and Ava's influence grew. She redesigned training drills, integrating her field experience. She introduced advanced ballistics software, cross-training with intelligence analysts, and emphasized mental resilience. But as her legend grew, so did the pressure. Not just from command, but from within herself. Late nights found her alone in the armory, cleaning her rifle, rehearsing shots that might never be taken. The silence was both comforting and haunting. She missed the adrenaline, the clarity that came only from life or death decisions. Then came the call. A crisis in the Pacific. A rogue state had acquired long-range missile technology, threatening global security. Intelligence pointed to a hidden weapons depot deep in the island's jungles. They wanted Whisper. Her mission: disable the facility with a single, precise shot, neutralize the missile system before launch. No support, no backup. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ava flew out immediately. The jungle was dense, humid, unforgiving. Visibility was low, the terrain unfamiliar. Her rifle was modified. Lighter barrel, advanced thermal scope, custom ammunition designed for jungle conditions. She set up a concealed position miles from the target. Wind shifted unpredictably through the canopy. She studied the missile silo through the scope. A massive steel cylinder, guarded by patrols and cameras. One shot. No margin for error. That night, Ava faced a choice. A squad of enemy soldiers patrolled nearby, too close for comfort. She could wait, risk losing her window, or move. The thought of retreat never crossed her mind. She adjusted her breathing, tuned out the buzzing insects and distant animal calls. Her finger hovered on the trigger. The moment was pure focus. Suddenly, movement. A child appeared at the edge of her sightline. Local, no doubt. Her heart skipped. She lowered the rifle. Ava realized then that the war wasn't just about impossible shots. It was about choices. The dawn brought clarity. She reported back. Mission delayed. Need better intel to avoid civilian casualties. Command was frustrated, but understood. Back. In the camp, Keen approached. "Every shot has a cost," she said quietly. "You're learning what I had to learn years ago." Ava looked at her, eyes steady. Sometimes, the bravest act isn't pulling the trigger. Weeks later, Ava returned to the States with a new mission. Teach the next generation that every shot matters, and so does every life. Her story was no longer just about hitting impossible targets, but about the quiet strength behind the trigger. The rookie who once stood alone had become a legend and a leader. Months passed. Ava Torres had transitioned from the shadows of battlefields to the bright lights of classrooms and training grounds. The rookie who stunned a nation with an impossible shot was now a mentor shaping America's finest. Her reputation followed her like a shadow. Yet Ava remained humble. No fanfare, no medals worn proudly. She knew true honor was earned quietly, shot by shot. One crisp morning, she stood before a new class of recruits, eager faces, some skeptical, some hopeful. She began with the story of her first 5,000-meter shot. Not as a boast, but a lesson. The bullet doesn't care about your ego or your doubts, she said softly. It only listens to your discipline and your heart. Eyes locked on her. Silence filled the room. Among the recruits was Jensen, now quieter, wiser, still stubborn but growing. "Do you ever miss?" he asked after class. Ava smiled. I do. And when I do, I learn. Every miss is a lesson. She handed him a worn notebook, her personal log filled with calculations, corrections, and reflections. Study this. It's not about being perfect. It's about being relentless. That evening, Ava walked alone to the shooting range, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of fire. She assembled her rifle with care, then lay prone, aiming at a distant steel plate. It was less than half her original record, but no less significant. Her fingers squeezed the trigger. Ping! The bullet struck dead center. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Whisper? Ava turned to see Keen approaching, a rare smile breaking through. You've done more than hit impossible shots, Keen said. You've inspired an entire generation. Ava looked at the young soldiers lined up behind her, men and women ready to carry the torch. She felt a swell of pride. Weeks later, Ava was honored with a special commendation from command. The ceremony was formal, the speeches long, but none mattered as much as the nods from her former doubters, those who had once mocked her. They now stood silent, respect etched in their faces. She shook hands, smiled, and accepted the award. Not as a victory, but as a promise to keep pushing boundaries. Back in her quarters, Ava placed the medal on a shelf beside her rifle and Harris's old scope. She opened her journal, writing her final entry. A shot can change. A moment, but legacy changes a lifetime. She closed the book and turned off the light. Years later, stories of Whisper had become legend, whispered in training halls, echoed in distant bases, and recorded in history books. But for Ava Torres, it was never about fame. It was about proving that with courage, skill, and heart, even a rookie could change the impossible. And that sometimes, the quietest bullet makes the loudest impact. End of story.